Please do. That'd be great.
But yeah. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody. Oh, and Deborah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.
G'day.
Hello.
Of course. Doesn't seem that long ago that I saw a few of these faces.
A sense of deja vu.
All over again. Is that Andrew? I can hear coughing in the background.
Yes.
Oh, I'll turn off.
Oh, hello, John. Did you want us to all read your hoodie there, did you? John?
No, my pen was behind it.
Hi.
Hello again.
Hello.
Two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got 7 councillors here. Tom's given his apologies. If he's
Councillor Bowen has given his apologies.
Has he? Okay. Yeah, and I'm not sure that Councillor Hurst has been able to join us. So we might as well make a start. Councillor Drummond is ready.
Yes, thanks, I am. Obviously, you can all see there's a recording button in the lit up in the corner, so I guess I don't need to explain that the meeting is being recorded. So welcome to the first meeting in the new Council of Finance and Policy held on Monday the 22nd of June at the time 1918. First item is to elect a chairman. So any proposals for chair?
I'd like to propose Councillor Jeffries.
Second.
Do you accept the nomination, Councillor
I
Jeffries?
do. I'll select. You can drag me to the chair. Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think you're duly elected chair.
Okay. You don't want to put a vote. Is that okay, Deborah?
Oh, I just wondered if there were any other nominations and whether we ought to just sort of perhaps do a show of hands just to confirm Councillor Jeffries as the mayor, as the chair. Right?
Any other nominations then?
No. Okay.
Okay, well, let's take a vote. Those for Councillor Jeffries?
1, 2, 3. Councillor Appleby,
Yes.
that's
Did I say? Yeah.
4 in favour. Do you want to, which way are you and Councillor Hood voting? You're
I'm not voting.
Okay.
Okay. We'll move to the, thank you very much. And so let's move hastily on to item 2 on the agenda, which is to elect a vice chair. And Councillor O'Neill, do we have a nomination?
I'd like to propose Councillor Kirby.
Okay. I will second Councillor Kirby. Are there any other nominations? Right, can I see all those in favour of Councillor Kirby, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's carried, Deborah.
Yes, it is.
The previous chair said about recording, and all participants will be muted by the host of the meeting, who will unmute the individual the chairman has invited to speak. We've also had apologies, I think. Are there any other apologies?
Yeah, well, it was Councillors Kirby and Bowen, as previously noted, and Councillor Hurst, I don't believe, has been able to join us.
Okay, thank you. Register of interests, declaration of members' interests, and to remind councillors of the need to keep up to date their register of members' interests and to consider any requests received from members' dispensations. Are there any requests? Going on to the minutes of the previous meeting, and those who were present, you will need to pay particular attention. So looking for accuracy to begin with, page 1, page 2, and page 3, although there is a 4th page, it's blank. If there are no points to raise, can I confirm that they are correct record? Someone propose that who was at the meeting? Thank you, Councillor Drummond. Can someone second it who was at the meeting, which is in fact only Councillor Hood? So it's you.
So what happens if I don't second it?
Well, I don't know. Let's not try that. Okay. But so it's been proposed, and I believe Councillor Hood has seconded it. Can I see those who were at the meeting agree that they were indeed a correct record?
I guess I can't remember.
And that is no one against. So matters arising. Thank you very much for that. Matters arising. Again, page 1, page 2, and page 3. Yes, Councillor Hood.
Yeah, this is just a couple of points of information. I wanted to know, has there been any progress with the land adjacent to Field Terrace Road? The lease details are going to be examined and advice taken, blah, blah. I'm imagining nothing's happened on that, but since I see new Debbie here, perhaps we could put that on a list so that something happens with that. It's not a complicated thing, new Debbie. It's just looking at the lease details of a small piece of land that's owned by the town council.
Right, thank you. And by raising it under matters arising, it will crop up in the next minutes, won't it? So yeah, we can look again.
Okay, and then the next item, paper policy. This is just matters arising, and I don't know whether this is going to Deborah or Debbie, but we get an awful lot of blank sheets in these minutes that come to us. So if you happen to print them off, you print off about 3 extra sheets. Is it possible to avoid doing that? I know we've got to look at the paper policy, but I'm just mentioning it.
I think the blank pages are designed so that if you've got an uneven number of pages in a document, then when you print, then the 4th page, if you print double-sided, then the 4th, all the documents don't meld one into the other and get confused and hard to follow. So it was meant really more for if you're printing double-sided. So if
you're not printing double-sided,
it creates extra pages. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. mean-
then it doesn't. Is that what you're saying? Sorry, it's just a.
Okay, is that all right, Councillor Hood?
Yeah, probably.
We move on.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're now on to public participation. Do we have any members of the public? I could see one, I think. Two. Do they wish to speak on at this point in the meeting? Is that a no, Deborah?
I think, well, neither of them have indicated, so I'd carry on.
Okay, lovely. So we move now to item 8 on the agenda, which is submission of schedules of payments. And this is for information, and it's cash books 1 to 4. So that's starting on page 5 of your pack. And Kathy, would you want to talk us through this?
Yeah, I actually think that we've already done this because it's kind of like duplicated, but I'm sure we did some of this at the full town council meeting.
Yeah, well, I think we could go through it fairly quickly.
I can go through it again, that's fine.
Yeah.
So if you look on cash book 1, second page, no, sorry, that isn't the page I want to look at. I don't think there's anything really much of anything that I need to bring up unless you want to ask me a question.
I could. Maybe we just go through the pages and I'll see if there are any questions.
Okay.
So going through cash book 1, we've got page 1,
yeah,
page 2, page 3, and page 4. And then going to cash book 2, page 1, page 2, and then going on to cash book 3, page 1, page 2, and then cash book 4, page 1, page 2, and that's we've done it. So there were no questions on any of that. So do we note that, Deborah?
We need a recommendation to accept.
Right. Well, I'll propose from the chair that we noting them. I'm looking for the right verb here.
Recommendation to adopt.
To receive them?
To receive and adopt.
Okay. So I'm proposing that we receive and adopt the cash book 1 to 4. Is that seconded? Thank you. Can I see all those in favour, please?
Yes.
And anyone against? No. Okay, thank you. So now we're going on to bank statements.
So for the last, normally what used to happen, obviously we haven't had a Finance and Policy Committee meeting for quite a while, is that just before the meeting, the chair of the F&P would come and check the bank statements and the reconciliations. Obviously that hasn't happened since March. Although the March ones have been checked by, they've gone through the audit. So probably not very concerned about those. April and May are outstanding, and I was intending, I'm on annual leave this week, but on Monday I will scan over to, I guess, to the new chair of F&P.
Would that be correct, Deborah, to the new chair?
Yes, if it's the chairman, then it's you.
Okay.
Because it's April and May.
Yeah.
Okay. I can send it over via email to you. So
you send it an email. I can
statements and
I can print it off, sign it, and scan it back to you.
That's great. So I'll do that on Monday the 29th.
Okay, so that concludes the bank statements, and we can move on to item 10, which is income and expenditure, to receive the income and expenditure for the Finance and Policy Committee from the last month. This is month 2 here.
Yeah, which is May.
Oh yes, of course. Sorry, yeah.
April, May.
Yeah. So, Jane, have you got anything you wish to highlight, or should we?
No, because I think again we did this on
the
full town council one, didn't we, last time?
So I'll just go through, and if you wish to ask a question, I think there are only 2 pages. So we've got page 1 and page 2. Okay, I'll propose from the chair that we receive the Income and Expenditure Finance and Policy Committee. Is that seconded? Okay. Is there any questions? Can I see all those in favour then, please?
Yes.
And those against? None. Thank you very much. We now move on to the Memorial Gardens kiosk and an update, I think. Where are we at?
Okay, so further, there's still an outstanding debt of £600 on the hire of the kiosk, which covers the last 6 months of, so September to March. I have been in touch with the environmental health, which is what we were talking about last time, because of the state inside of the food and so on. Today she rang me actually, and I just happened to pick the phone up. And I was glad that we did. She basically said, you know, because they're not operating at the moment, environmental health don't need to be involved because the garden is shut and they're not operating. So she said that whatever you want to do as far as this food and the state of the hut is concerned is down to between them and the council. She did, however, say that she remembered looking at the kiosk originally, and that since coronavirus and before that, but especially now, you'd have to think going forward very carefully about letting food being served from there when things are allowed to be served, you know, when the gardens are open. Because she said there is no, and she's right, there is no separate hand washing facility, and there does have to be. I've tried again to get in touch with the people. She's managed to speak to them, interestingly enough. And they said they hadn't received any information from us, any notification from us.
So can I just ask, Kathy, how have you tried to contact them? Have you tried to call them or email them?
I've tried to call them, and because they didn't ever answer their phone, or I left messages, get back to me. I've written several letters to them.
Right, and we've got the evidence that we've written those letters.
Yeah, and they did actually come the lockdown day. They had received one of those letters, and I have written since, and they haven't responded to that because they did come on lockdown day, strangely enough, and we couldn't obviously let them in then. So I said, you know, we'll contact you again, which I did several weeks ago to say, you know, you can book a time to come and clear up.
So when we wrote to them that we got a response, didn't we say, you know, we need to hear from you, or you need to contact us, or we will, you know, we'll sort of review the tenancy, or some words to that effect. And I don't think they'll be able to carry on the tenancy. This is what she was saying. Whether they wanted to or not, she's saying that she doesn't feel that the kiosk will comply anymore because you have to have separate, unless you do changes in there. And she said, interestingly, she said that she'd noted that they had been doing fried food in there, and had told them that really it wasn't suitable, and they told her they'd stop doing that, such as bacon sandwiches. But I don't know anything about that. I don't know whether they did stop. I thought they were still doing them back in summertime. Well, I think there are two issues here. The one issue is around the current tenancy, the fact that they owe us £600 from the last 6 months up to the end of March.
Yeah.
And the fact that the snack shack is in a very poor condition as a result of all the food waste that they've left there. And I would, perhaps we could look at writing to them and advising them, unless they come and clear or make arrangements with us to come and clear out and leave the snack shack in a clean and tidy state, then we will undertake to get a cleaning company in to do that. We will charge that to them along with the amount of the £600 that's owed, and if they don't pay the amount by a set date, that we would consider taking them, pursuing them through the CCJ route. And that I don't know whether councillors think that that's an appropriate route to take.
I would like to propose that. That sounds absolutely the correct way forward, and Councillor O'Neill is seconding it. Any councillor wish to speak on this item? Okay, let's put it to the vote then. Yes?
Oh, sorry, no, carry on. Yeah, because there is another element, but I can just in a minute.
Are you voting, Councillor O'Neill? Or? Okay. All those in favour, please, of the way forward as described by the Town Council Manager.
Yes.
Okay. And those against? And those abstaining? Okay.
So
you wanted to say something else?
Yeah, there's the second element to this is the fact that the environmental health has suggested that the snack shack in its current form isn't necessarily going to be a suitable place to be selling food from in the future. And I think maybe that needs to be investigated. There needs to be separate hand washing facilities for starters. So I wonder whether that's something we need to be looking at.
Is that something that should be discussed at the Community and Leisure meeting? I understand that the finance part of it should be discussed here.
Yeah, so that element of it could be referred to C&L. Yeah.
To decide what the future way forward is for the Memorial Gardens.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. So we'll move on now to 12, and there is a paper, page 16 of your pack, with the earmark reserves listed. And this is for discussion. It seems to me that where there is a 0 in the opening balance and a 0 in the closing balance, those items could be removed with the exception of 2. And the 2, I would argue, is the very first one, 311, play equipment, and 341, the water feature, because these are areas that you need to build up a fund in over a number of years, because we know that in time you would need to replace play equipment and probably have to replace our water feature. And my proposal for discussion would be that we include an amount on an annual basis to put in those earmarked reserves to build them up. Now, I don't know if anyone's got any other views about any of the other headings, and I've got Councillor Drummond and then the Town Council Manager. Councillor Drummond.
Just unmuting myself. Yeah, just quickly going through the list. I appreciate what you're saying about the 2 that you think we should keep, but also what about 324 grants and 326 by-elections?
Yeah.
And my point was 328 vehicle replacement.
Yeah. But there's not much point in having 0 in them.
Well, I think, you know, maybe you need to be focusing on looking at ensuring that you have saving up annually to put some money in the pot. Excellent.
Yeah. Kathy.
The 326 by-elections is a brand new one, and because we talked about this a couple of over the last month or two about having to put some of the we've got 2 by-elections coming, possibly, maybe not in this year, but certainly next year. And there was an amount that council decided they would put aside. I think it was about 9,000 to put into there. It just hasn't got into there yet. So that created that. So we wouldn't want to delete that one. That will happen.
So anyone else wish to add anything in regards of either taking an earmark reserve out or adding ones? What have we missed out? That would be the other view. No. Well, I think it would be appropriate for the ones that we've highlighted that need money going into them to go to the appropriate committee, so that play equipment and water features should be an item on the Community and Leisure agenda to say how much from their budget should go into the earmarked reserve. EMR grants would be finance and policy, I'm guessing, please correct me. By-elections we've dealt with, and vehicle replacement, that would be Community and Leisure as well. Deborah, is that a way forward, do you think?
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything to decide there. I don't think there's any proposals other than taking out all the other ones that have 0 in both columns. And then taking the items, I think there are 5, 311, it's 4, 311, 324, 328 and 341 to the appropriate committee to decide how much should go into those earmarked reserves. And again, that no decision, well, do I need to have a vote on that? Well, I'll propose that we do that. Is that seconded? Is that seconded, Councillor Drummond? Yeah. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, can I see those in favour then of those 4 items going to the appropriate committee?
Yeah.
Thank you, and that's carried. We now turn to the risk management scheme, a long document, pages 17 to 28 of your pack. Who wishes to speak to this? Is this the Town Council Manager or Kathy?
We did, we talked about this at the Full Town Council, and I think it was referred to here with the idea that it could be something that a working party might want to look at. I think that was the plan. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think that was probably true. Sorry, Town Council Manager.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the risk management policy statement forms part of the internal controls that the town council is responsible for reviewing on an annual basis as part of its and end of year accounts. I mean, we're doing this rather late in the day in terms of the financial year, so the review of it was a rubber stamping exercise at the last meeting, so that was done in time for the end of year accounts for the financial year to March 2020. But going forward, I would like to suggest that there's a whole raft of documents that form part of your internal controls, which includes things like your insurance policy, this document, and there's various other documents as well that help to sort of ensure that you've got the appropriate and proper controls in place for the management of finances. And there's quite a lot of documents to go through. So at DES, we used to have a working group that was set up with the sole purpose of going through all of these documents and making sure, and just sort of going through them basically line by line. You know, officers would have gone through, looked at them, made some recommendations, go through it with councillors. It's quite an arduous process, but for those who are interested, it can be quite useful to make sure you've got all the appropriate measures in place for the sort of effective and efficient management of public money. So and that's something that you would seek to do probably sort of towards the end of the annual year rather than the financial year, so that you can approve any measures in early January, so that's all completed in time for the end, before the end of the financial year. But I mean, that's just my recommendation.
Well, I'm glad you put that timescale on it. I would propose then at the October meeting of the Finance and Policy meeting, we set up a working group with hopefully they might actually be able to meet in reality rather than virtually, which would make life a lot simpler. So I'll make that proposition to begin with, that a working group be set up to look at the risk assessments or the risk management scheme, and that should be set up at the October meeting of the Finance and Policy Committee. That's seconded, thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on that? Okay, can I see all those in favour, please?
Yeah.
And those against? And those abstaining? Okay, well, it was carried. Deborah, is it worth us looking at some aspects of this as it's in front of us now? I've noticed, for instance, going through it, that there were 7 nines in there, 9 being the most extreme risk. Is that should we be looking at those?
Yeah, that probably would be a good idea.
Well, if you turn to, well, first of all, on page 3, there is no score at all, but I think the score should be a 2. And it's missing at the bottom of page 3 for investment income. So that's just an error, I think. And then the first 9 is on page 8. Which is office security. So that's on page 24 of your pack, page 8 of the risk management scheme. How can we reduce that risk? Any views? Can you all see where I'm talking about?
I think there's quite a lot of measures in place, or those measures are in place already.
Seems very high.
High risk due to lack of staff and control of keys, locking and unlocking procedures, etc. Well, from what I've seen, that's pretty much under control. You know, anybody who's given a set of keys, they have to sign for it. We know we've got a record who holds keys. They have to, you know, so we've got a record of that. We've got the alarms are operational. We know they work because we managed to set them off quite frequently. We know the appropriate fire safety measures are in place. We've got you know, the NSIS is managing all our sort of files and things. We've got
so that could be reassessed then, can't it?
I would have thought so, yeah.
Yeah.
So shall we highlight the ones that could be reassessed, and then who is it who actually does this? Is that you, Kathy, who sort of comes up with the scores?
I think it was probably Bobby, to be fair, because I think Kathy was too busy trying to sort out the mess picked up.
I think we could go through the 9s, and if they can be reassessed, then we put it back to you for reassessment, and then report back to us what your verdict is. Because I don't think it's something you can do on the hoof. This is something that needs to be thought carefully about.
Well, we could certainly very quickly just go through the 9s and establish.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do.
Yeah, any major concerns this minute.
So the next one is on page 9 of the document, and it's office administration, near the bottom of page 9, as I say, which is page 25 of the pack. So you've got both high making a 9.
Yeah, so I mean, that has been demonstrated in the last few months, you know, because you've had loss of 2 staff from the office, and replacement with 1, and as well as obviously a sort of interim clerk waiting for the new one to come in, and that has had an impact. But I don't think it's been. Hopefully it hasn't been severe in terms of the operation of the council. I think, you know, the council has continued to tick over. There's probably some things that haven't been perhaps pursued at the rate that councillors would have liked, because we've just had the lack of resource to be able to achieve that. But I think probably the impact of loss of officers, you know, I think that if you said financial administration, so if we lost Kathy, I think we'd be in quite a dire situation. You know, we know we can manage with an interim clerk, but I think a loss of Kathy would be a key point that the council needs to have a plan for. You know, what are you going to do if Kathy suddenly resigns, or she goes off on long-term sick, or, you know, that's the sort of thing that you need to be thinking about planning for. Right.
Okay. So you think that still exists as a 9, and until we've got a plan in place, we have to leave it at 9.
Well, I think in terms of office administration, if you're talking about people, the sort of administrative role and the events management role, I think it's probably more like a 6. But if you, I think there should be a separate item for the finance administration, and that should be a 9 until you've sort of worked out how you would manage in that situation.
Okay, can we put in an extra row there then? I think that makes a lot of sense. If you object to this or you disagree, please do chime in as we go through. So there we're going to put in an extra line and then reassessing the office administration one. Yeah?
Yeah.
The next one is on page 11. And there are 2 on page 11. Sorry, I've lost it now. Oh, yeah. Budget and precept near the top of page 11, and staff resources near the bottom of page 11.
There's one for councillor declarations at the top there.
Oh yeah, 3. I missed that one. Councillor declarations, accurate and legal.
I think we just discovered today that the ones on our website weren't up to date, but that is now sorted. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I've not heard of any prosecutions of councillors for not having an up-to-date declaration of interest. I mean, it really relates to application where a councillor has a pecuniary interest, which really only relates to properties that they themselves own. They, you know.
Do we need to reissue the forms? We did do it.
No, we've done that. No, it's all fine. It's all.
Okay.
Yeah, there is. I mean, the onus is on councillors to ensure that their declarations of interest are up to date.
Well, in that case, surely it can't be a 9.
No, I would have thought that.
I thought it's medium and medium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a 6, perhaps, or a 4.
Well, a 4 if it's medium, medium.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Next one, budget and precept.
So setting the precept is one of the 2 most important things that the council will do in any financial year, and ensuring that you've budgeted sufficient to cover off all of your activities, and obviously making sure that you're planning ahead for ensuring you've got good general reserves and sufficient earmarked reserves is a really important part of what the council needs to be doing. So I would suggest that 9 is probably correct, because you need to be keeping it as a high priority to making sure that you've got it right.
I don't deny it's a high priority, but that we ought to be taking actions to bring the risks down, and that's something that we maybe need to consider. It may be something that the working group needs to consider. How do you bring the risks down?
Well, I think it turns out it doesn't actually specify what the risk is in this document, and the version of this that I'm used to would actually specify what the risk is. So the risk is that you have not budgeted sufficient to cover off your expenses, or you've got insufficient reserves to cover off unexpected, unbudgeted in-year expenditure, and it's mitigating those risks that need to be specified in here. So it might be that actually you might perhaps want to review the document itself to make sure it actually fit for purpose.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on that one. And then the last one is at the bottom, staff resources.
Yeah, well, there is a high risk.
Yeah.
And you know, you've been, for the last few months, you've been suffering the consequences of not having, you know, sort of permanent staff in post for any length of time. And it is something that you need to make sure that you've mitigated against. Again, I think, you know, the document needs to more accurately reflect what the impact is, you know, so what the risk is specifically, and then what specific measures you can put in place. And I can, if for anyone who's interested, I can send you a link to show you an example of one that's got more information in it that might be more useful.
Well, that would be useful for the working group, wouldn't it? If we could have that for the working group. Well,
Kathy's, as long as she remembers, I have sent her a link to a document. There's also lists all of the relevant internal audit documents in a report. That includes that risk register, which has got more of a description of risks in it.
Okay, and going to the last page, there are 3 consecutive 9s. 2 of them to do with councillors, or if not, they're not all to do with councillors. Non-compliance with audit requirements.
So, I mean, again, you know, this is something, the risks can be mitigated. I mean, you know, the last thing you want is a report in the public interest because the council hasn't managed its finances properly, or it hasn't undertaken its legal requirements appropriately, it hasn't been done appropriate reporting, it's not being accountable and transparent, and all of those things. So, I mean, you know, if that was to happen, yes, that would have a significant impact because it, you know, it severely damaged the council's reputation. However, I don't think that it's high risk for Newmarket Town Council, having, you know, worked with you now for 6 months. I sort of understand your finances and all your procedures you've got in place, and I don't see that as being high risk, so long as you continue to monitor it and, you know, sort of keep on top of the things that you need.
So that could be reassessed.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question?
Please. Yes.
What does it mean saying poor track record here? That one.
I'm assuming that's either historical or that's a specified risk, an identified risk.
But I mean, we haven't got a poor track record of this, so I'm just wondering what it means.
I have no idea. I haven't touched this document.
When did this document, where does it originate from? Kathy?
So I believe that this was done, we started in 2017. I think this was done in 2018 between Bobby and Ellis Whittam. Came to update it, and obviously there was historical problems, issues then that we were still recovering from. And a lot of this seems to me to be 2 years back.
So that would go back to before Andy was the mayor, I can only assume. I mean, it doesn't read very well if it says poor track record.
Well, I think this document, I think Kathy's made a very important point. It's out of date. And what we're doing is we're highlighting any high risks and dealing with them. That's the important thing. But the whole thing needs reassessing if it's 2 years out of date. And that will be something that the working group can look at. But I agree, poor track record is not something we like to see.
Well, it's also not true. So I still don't understand why it's in there.
Well, I don't think we're going to get an answer to that, Councillor Hood, because I don't know who the author of this paper is.
Does anybody know who authored it? Deborah, do you know?
No.
Oh,
No.
Andy might.
Andy?
I think it was prepared by Bobby.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Bobby with Ellis Whittam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
And this was way back when we were still, you know, in transition sort of thing.
Well, I think we last looked at it September in the previous year, didn't we? So it comes up.
2019, yeah, but I think it was, I believe that it was before then. I'm sure it was 2018. It was actually, I don't think much was changed in 2019, thinking about it.
Yeah,
when probably it should have been, yeah.
Okay, well, last two, let's deal with the last two. So we got councillors here. And that screams at me that we need training, if that's the case. And that would be something to reduce that risk.
Yeah, so in this column, in this instance, it feels more like the identified risk, which is that, you know, councillors could act, you know, acting inappropriately or beyond the, and so forth. So yeah, and then you'd have in the next column, you'd have the measures that you would undertake to mitigate that risk, and as you suggest, training would be one of them. But I think, you know, it's highlighting, you know, the likelihood and the impact is so. And prioritising, you know, pointing it out that it is a priority to ensure that we mitigate this particular risk.
Any comments? The last one is lack of transparency. That's about our declaration of interest forms, which we know to need to display better on our website. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, quite interesting that I only today realised that the declarations of interest were on our website. I just never found them, but others had, and then it became apparent that we hadn't updated them. So that has today been sorted. But you know, we sort of worked really hard to make sure that we had all councillors up-to-date declarations of interest, and we'd submitted them to.
So when that's done successfully, we can reduce that from a 9 then, can't we?
Well, yeah, but it needs to be something that we keep on top of.
Yeah, no, I do agree. But that's about looking at this in an annual way and not just accepting it, but going through it, isn't it? And I mean, today we've only done a partial look because we've only looked at the extreme measures. We haven't looked at the ones in between. And that's where the working group will need to work to reassess it completely and re-present it. And it's beholden on councillors to actually go through it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on that? We've had a resolution that we're going to set up a working group, and we've looked at the highest risk factors in the scheme. So we can move on to item 14, health and safety. I don't think we've had a report.
Yes, I do apologise. It was sent out just before the DMP meeting started.
Right. Okay. Can you take us through it? Because I'm going to have trouble accessing that.
Okay. Spare with me one. I think I already got it open. No. Right. So the health and safety report. I'll do a share screen if I can just get it open.
I've had a quick look at that. I gather things with the play area, as the gardens aren't open, that's not so much of a priority.
Well, no, but it's a
But we need them ready for when we do open.
Absolutely, yeah. And the top netting issue has been an ongoing problem since I started here. So I think now is the perfect opportunity while the memorial gardens are closed to get a solution sorted.
I've seen that one that whilst Bobby was still in post, I went into the gardens once and helped collect those pieces. So it looks like they're only cable tied on and people have removed that. I would think we need to think about perhaps a wire mesh that's affixed on there properly.
So Kathy, you were looking into that, weren't you?
Okay. Yeah, so this last week, actually, I've had some time to look through that. There was also because we had also putting one of those fans, wire fans, I don't know what they're called, just on the top of this slide to stop people climbing up the outside of the slide. And I think it was Massey Harris who had actually designed the castle and installed it, have actually quoted for that, but this was way back. So I've picked it up to try and sort of start with that again. And Gary has talked to me about this problem with the netting, which I wasn't involved in at the beginning, but it seems sensible to do the two together because it's all about one unit. So when I intend, when I come back next week, to get in touch with Massey Harris and I think it's North Moors, who and ask them, you know, for further, because it's a long time since we spoke to them about it, to try and sort of start up that conversation again and try and find out exactly what we can do and get some prices for it.
Okay, how do you want us to proceed with this, Deborah? Presumably, where you've got urgent items identified, we need to action each of those. And you're looking for questions from councillors.
Well, I think in terms of the play equipment issue, I think there isn't a lot you can do until we've got some more information from the contractors about the options, and then that'll be the time for councillors to review those options and make decisions about the way forward. So I mean, it's really just reporting that these items have been identified and what we're doing about them.
Okay, lovely.
With the taps, I presume we're looking into replacing all the taps at the moment to make sure they're the push type. Is that right?
This predated going into lockdown. It was a problem that Gary had brought to my attention, and I'd have to ask Gary for some more information on that. Perhaps.
Am I right in thinking we're looking into replacing the taps in the memorial hall, in the bathrooms, to make sure they're the push type?
Yes.
So rather than turning, so everything would be covered under that. Would we not be looking into all of them anyway? So we'll get a more up-to-date picture.
Yeah. Yeah, but as I said, the issues at the sports pavilion predated lockdown, and I can't remember the detail now, but I think the cost of replacing all the taps was prohibitive. So we just went for a couple of taps because it wasn't a particularly well used bathroom, so it didn't seem a lot of point in spending a lot of money on 8 new taps. But I'm sure we can get some more information.
Yeah. I've got a vague memory that they were pushing taps in the sports pavilion, because I remember having to try and pull one out because it would stuck in. But that clearly needs looking at, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're going down the page.
Ladies' toilets are plastering, so that's sort of the cemetery. You've got the men's toilets, the ladies' toilets, and I believe there might be a disabled toilet as well. We had closed the toilets to the public because of issues with homeless people sleeping in them. So, but then we still had them available, I think, for funerals. But we had a problem with the ladies' toilet before we went into lockdown, so just after Christmas, I believe. So we, because the toilets aren't designated, they're not sort of set up specifically as men's toilets and ladies' toilets. It's just we made one toilet unisex while the other one was out of action. But Gary has now fixed the ladies' toilet so that it's adequate for use, but not very pretty. So the cemetery staff are using that one, and then Sue and any funeral attendees are using the ladies' one, or the gents of being sort of the better, the one that's in better decorative order. But as being Gary's cleaning it in between funerals, so that we're keeping on top of that.
Okay, moving on.
I'm not sure what the light in the power room is about, but obviously Gary's on top of that.
Okay.
And then we're just sort of Gary decided that he was going to help the SLA team by strimming in the memorial gardens. And he used a strimmer that was left over from the days when Newmarket had its own direct workforce. But what he didn't have was a proper sling to put it in, and it wasn't set up for his height. And so after several hours of strimming, he was experiencing some back pain. So he had some stern words from me, because he didn't have the appropriate training, he didn't have the appropriate PPE, and he has now decommissioned the strimmer so nobody else can use it until such time as we perhaps decide as a council that it would be appropriate for him to undertake the appropriate training, and if there was occasion for him to do some strimming, but it's been dealt with.
Councillor Drummond.
I propose we get rid of the strimmer. Maybe give it to West Suffolk or dispose of it, and we do not get Gary to train to strim. It's a very dangerous practice. I have one and I hate using it, and it's an accident waiting to happen.
Could I propose that we sell it, because actually it's a good quality strimmer that's probably got quite a value, and it may be that the proceeds from the sale of it could perhaps be put towards something like vehicle replacement in the future.
Excellent.
Okay, is that a proposal, Councillor Drummond?
Yes, I propose we sell the strimmer.
Okay, is that seconded?
Yes, I'm seconding that.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on that?
Well, can I just ask about how much are we talking the strimmer might be worth?
I don't know. You'd have to ask Gary, but probably sort of £300 or £400, I would have thought.
Councillor Drummond.
I just bought a brand new Still strimmer, which are like the best you can get, and it was 250 quid. Okay, and I still hate using it.
Well, I think it depends on the type that we've got is probably a sort of an industrial, commercial type.
Yeah, so is mine. It's a Still petrol-driven one. Pretty serious bit of kit, and they are so dangerous that we really don't want to be having employees using them.
Okay, well, we've got a proposal that the strimmer is sold. We've got it. It's been seconded. Is there any further? Councillor Hood, are you voting or are you?
Voting.
Okay.
It just occurs to me, I think Gary said that there might be some other equipment as well that the council still holds. I just wonder if it's worth just sort of saying that any equipment that we be sold.
Yeah.
Okay. So as an amendment to the proposal that any equipment that is of no further use to the council be sold off. Is there anyone wish to speak any further before we go to the vote? Right, all those in favour of the proposal?
Yeah.
Okay, anyone against? No. Does that conclude the health and safety report, Deborah?
No, there's another document which you should be able to see on your screen now, called
I still can see the old one.
Which is, oh well, I'll stop the share then, and then share again. Can you
Yeah.
see this document now? So there's a number of items that have been raised over the months that are in the process of being dealt with. I don't know.
Any questions on these? If you'd like to go down the list, scanning down the list. Any questions? Councillor Drummond.
Yeah, all I'd like to say really in summary is it's very important to keep on top of these things on a monthly basis. And I brought this to this committee so that we can keep on top of things. When I was the mayor, I discovered we had something like 130 health and safety violations, and they were being buried. So this is a very good way of keeping on top of things. Don't stop doing it.
No. It seems very good to me. Any other comments? Okay, any comments from you, Deborah?
No, none.
Okay, does that complete the report?
Yes.
Do we need to vote to accept it?
Yes.
No, just noted.
Okay.
There you go.
We'll just note it then. Do I have to have a vote to note it? There we are.
No.
No, right, noted. I go on to item 15 before I... correspondence. Have we got any correspondence?
No, none.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the date of next meeting, which is Monday, the 20th of July. Now, there is a 17th item to note items for consideration at the next meeting. So in July, is there anything you particularly want on the agenda? Please speak up now. Okay, that ends the meeting. Thank you as ever for coming to the meeting. And I finish the meeting now, and have a very good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Hello.